Welcome to The Voiceover with your host, Dee Foster III, where we discuss relevant topics that affect the culture with bold, independent commentary. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and encouraged.
Welcome to another The Voice Over Net podcast. I'm your host, Dee Foster III. I am so delighted you could join us today. Come on in, smash that like, share, notification bell. We got a lot to talk about. I want to say thank you for just being a part of our brand new The Voice Over Net podcast, where you are promised to get thought-provoking, informational, educational, and a lot of entertainment today. I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements or reminders before we get into the content. And I want you to listen, do me a favor. Get your favorite beverage, because we got a lot of stuff we're going to get into. And as we get into it, every now and then, you may need to take a sip of whatever it is, even if it's even if it's water, but we're going to get into it. But before we get started, we just want to remind you that every Sunday morning, we're giving you an encouraging word right here on WPBMediaNetworks.com at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called The Voice of Hope Connection. And it's just a word. You know, the week contains many things. I know many of you this week, you're like, God, let Friday come. Well, it's here. But on Sunday, we give you a word that hopefully resonates with you, that takes you all the way through the week and over every single hurdle. So you can see that on all and hear it even on all the WPB Media Networks.com platform. Also, immediately after that, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Listen, everybody is going through their own going through, and nobody can put what they're going through any higher than anyone else. But one thing we all have in common, and that is a need for healing. And so every Sunday morning at 7:30, we have what's called the Voice of Healing Community Prayer Call, where we just get on, and some people say nothing, most people say nothing, and we have soothing music. And usually I commentate and have confessions and affirmations to bring healing, some financial, some spiritual, some mental, some emotional, but all of us need healing. And we encourage you to take a part of that. The number is on the screen, but it is 605, area code 313-5835, and the access code is 178334. And if you would like to send me a prayer request, don't have to mention your name, you can do so at our email address, thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com, thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com, and we will lift up your prayer request and send healing energy and healing power into your situation. I'm so glad that you have joined us today. Again, every Friday at 5, if you're riding home on the train, and I love it because, you know, if you want to wind down and have some fun and get entertained while you're on your way home, especially if you're in the train or if you're in the carpool or if you're in the gym, you can take us with you every single Friday. And of course, if you feel led to donate, please do so. We're building our platform. There's a lot of needs that we have to do to even take it to the next level. We're not begging, we're just offering. If you're led, if you're getting something out of this, then we encourage you. Our PayPal and our Zelle address is wakeup, WAKEUPP03@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And Wake Up Global Networks is a tax-deductible organization. Women's History Month. All month we've been celebrating women. Now you notice I'm going to do something, because I think sometimes when we go to mention our sheroes, and even during Men's Month, our heroes, is always somebody in history, is always somebody from the past, which they deserve their kudos. But right now we have women that are making a mark on our society and lifting the bar and being those roles and examples to women at large. And so today We want to celebrate remembering the contribution that women have made to our nation, to their families, to their communities. Today, we celebrate the work of Kiara Raleigh, Prophetess Kiara Raleigh. She is the owner, she's an entrepreneur, y'all, of the non-peril virtual solutions. She is a mother to two young adults now. She is a wife. She is a loving daughter and a sister and a sister-in-law. And she is the executive assistant to Wake Up Global Networks Incorporated. And so she reminds me, as a woman with the scripture said in Proverbs 31, who can find a virtuous woman? I believe Kiara is the model of a godly woman, a woman of virtue who represents outside of the gates her family well. So on today, in Women's History Month, we want to celebrate Prophetess Kiara Raleigh. Thank you for all that you have done and all that you have given back into your community, into your children, into the nation, into your organizations, and as a model of what virtual woman should be. So we want to congratulate her. All right, let's get into the content today. Like, share, follow. Please, you don't want to miss this. Today is part 2, and I very seldom do a part 2. But I think this subject is so interesting and so relevant, because that's what we bring here, relevant content. If you're talking about it, we're talking about it. Today is part 2, and this will be the final part of our, it won't be the final part of the series, the current and future state of conversation. But we did the current and future state of media and entertainment last week, and this is part 2. Now, by the way, I just wanted to let y'all know, I got to be real with you. All right, seriously. So I'm very busy now. Got a lot going on, thank God. We're back in the saddle. So my time, I have to capitalize off my time. So to do so, because I have to record this, I've got to do my prep to make sure my facts are right, think it through. Can't just jump on here willy-nilly. No, talking to too many people, right? Too many educated people. We attract the educated. So to capitalize off time, because I need to make sure not a lot of it yet, my hair is right. So I have to confess, asked my barber, could he cut my hair while I was doing the podcast? Oh, yes. And another thing I have to confess to you, I almost brought my leftover syrup from breakfast to pour it over my notes to make a dramatic point. But then it dawned on me, y'all didn't tune into my podcast, the Voice Over Now podcast. You didn't tune into the Voice Over Now podcast to experience none of that buffoonery. No, you didn't. Because you can see that at a certain church, which I'm going to talk about next week. The current and future of not the church Jesus built, the system. I started to bring my trampoline. I went to the gym earlier. But I figured, because I try to be a man of substance and content and delivery, I don't have to provide you the shenanigans. You came to hear what I had to say. And when people come to hear what you have to say, you don't need the shenanigans. And I'm going to talk about it. Don't miss next week. The current and future state of what is called the church. Mm, mm, mm. All right. Did I tell you to share? Did I tell you to like? Did I tell you that already? All right. From last week, let me ask you again. How trustworthy is today's mainstream? y'all, y'all gotta forgive me, because I would, you know what? I should have bought my barber. I try to stay tight, and I should have bought I got some, I think some syrup in the refrigerator, and just poured it over my notes and said, whoever can guess who I'm mimicking, uh, you'll win something. I wish I would get my family. I'm just saying, you get a family up, get them dressed, drive them, look for a parking space to see somebody, pour syrup over the Bible, and get their hair cut. That's personal stuff. Don't matter. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. And that's why they said a lot of leaders were leaving, because people are tired of the buffoonery. If you got something to say it. And if you don't, shut the door. Remember though, what was that? Saturday? No, Willie Wayne's brother. Shut the door. If you ain't got nothing to say, shut the daggone door. So let me ask you this, because I got something to say. How trustworthy is the mainstream media? In part 2 of the current and future state of mainstream media. Are they a lens that you can clearly see, look through mainstream media, and get truth and get facts? And I think we started on last week with saying, don't believe your lying eyes. Now, I want to start this podcast off reminding you of your First Amendment rights, because it is obvious, and I'm going to get to it, that some of that may be in jeopardy gradually. Because, with the American people, they have to gradually slip things in to create something called tolerance. They can't give you the whole barrel of wax. We in this country are not built that way. They have to ease it in. Just a little bit, not that bad. Introducing. And see, this is those of us that are aware and woke. We see what's coming. Just introducing this. Let's see how the American people take it. If they don't take it well, we'll push back on it for a while. But if they eat it up, we'll give them just a little more, till now it becomes the norm. Same thing they do in church. Well, let me leave that alone. I'm going to get to that next week. Let me remind you of your First Amendment rights. Because remember, the whole premise of this last week was the attempt to ban a social media platform that 170 million people currently use for everything from showing people how to cook, how to cut hair, making music, the exchange of information is up to being banned. As a matter of fact, I'm holding in my hands some information from the Washington Post that says right now the Supreme Court has to deliberate on a suit from 2 states, Louisiana and Missouri, as they accuse the Biden administration of violating the First Amendment rights by operating a sprawling federal censorship enterprise to influence platforms to modify or take down posts, like, in my opinion, Don Lemon was doing to Elon Musk in his failed interview, because Don was out of the system. He was still obviously, and I'm going to talk about that if I get a chance, in the system. See, this is a whole new game. And this is why I'm saying we have to have this discussion about mainstream media, because I believe, and I'm going ahead, it is dying a horrific death, namely because we don't trust it, because it's an attempt to silence us. Now, I'm going to get to that. But yeah, there's a current Supreme Court ruling up that Biden is running a censorship enterprise. Is that like a RICO? Like they say young thug? Yeah, now, anyway, Fani Willis. Which I've never seen a case like YSL in my life. I've never seen a case, almost 2 years. Young Thug has been locked up while she's over here in shenanigans. But anyway, I got a lot of stuff to get to. That's why y'all got to come every single week, because we got stuff to talk about that ain't being talked about on a large scale. But you're talking about it in private. No, it's time to bring it out. Because I'm going to tell you this. While this stuff is coming out, it's because, again, Pluto, death, transformation, rebirth, goes deep. In mythology, god of Hades. It's moving back into the sign of Aquarius in June at its anaretic degree. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, don't worry about it. But some of those of you out there, you understand what I'm saying. Some of you follow me, so you know what I'm saying. Capricorn, it's going back into Capricorn. Capricorn is systems. And Pluto's job is to destroy evil systems so that we can resurrect systems of righteousness. And that's what's happening. So all that I'm reading here, in my opinion, there's stuff that the higher ups know coming out. And now, unlike before, we have become, because of the internet and social media, our own investigative journalists. So you can't hide anymore. And so the harder we make it to have access, is my opinion, to information, the more we can keep stuff buried. But I'm telling you, prophetically, let me even go prophetically, because that's what they say, prophetically. I'm saying prophetically according to the heavens, it ain't happening. It's all coming out. And whatever and whoever, all of us, are not authentic will be, people talking about 2024 is a year of exposure. No, it's deeper than that. It's because of the astrological alignments. When you understand what Pluto's job is. Pluto rules Scorpio. Give you a little astrology for me. Don't turn it. You may learn something. Pluto rules Scorpio. Scorpio psychology, the 8th house, goes deep. Doesn't mind the muck and the mire and the dirt. And it's going to come up with the dead, with the skeletons that's been buried. Because the skeleton's going to float to the top. And it's going back into Capricorn, which represents big systems, governments, industries that we see falling now. And part of it is being initiated by independent media, because you're not hearing this on mainstream media for the most part. Give you a case in point, and I'm jumping ahead of myself. I got notes, but hey, today I should have got my hair cut here. Put some syrup. Give me that syrup. Give me that syrup. You haven't heard about the Ponzi, alleged Ponzi scheme, DJ Envy? On a mass scale, who hosts one of the biggest podcasts that there is, The Breakfast Club, with Charlamagne, the God. You haven't heard? That's not been on the news cycle, the main nightly news cycle, because it's funded by iHeart. And iHeart has something to do. They are a major media mogul company. Anyway, but I'm just giving that for an example. And I'm not beating up on the black brother. And I'm tired of us windmilling for people just because they got our skin or gender. Right is right. And that's what independent media is saying. Ain't no more windmilling. Ain't nowhere to run. Ain't nowhere to hide. We got the internet. We got the websites. We got the apps. We got the time. And guess what? We got the audience. Because the blogs and streaming and independent media audience are bigger in many cases. That's why I don't understand what Don Lemon did. Because he would have got more people watching him on X than he ever had. Anybody watch Don Lemon on CNN? Let's come on. For the most part. They even moved him toward the night. But anyway, let me read your First Amendment rights. Because as I said, this is just the beginning. When I prophesied last year that we were going to begin to see our rights chipped away at, it's just the beginning. And if you don't know your rights, see, George Orwell, in the book 1984, if you haven't read it, though it's an older book, he told you. It's called 1984. He told you, he prophesied. And you got authors, artists, people in astrology and all of that, who many times are more accurate than the prophets they call in the church, because they're not prophesying for money. They're prophesying according to the science. But anyways, any day now. So let me read you your First Amendment rights as we get into this conversation. Like this, share this. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution prevents the government from making laws respecting an establishment of religion. That's freedom of religion. Prohibiting the free exercise of religion, or abridging the freedom of speech, stopping the freedom of speech, the freedom of speech. There's no clause that's cut and dry. The freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of assembly. We have a right to gather, and the right to petition the government for the redress of grievances. Right? That's the First Amendment right. So let me ask you this. Let me go back to this clause again. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution prevents the government from making laws respecting the establishment of religion, prohibiting or stopping or interfering with the free exercise or the freedom of speech. So let me ask you this. Share this. Would you consider TikTok, Meta, LinkedIn, X, formerly known as Twitter, platforms of freedom of expressions? I would. It's where you can get on and express yourself. That was one of the things when Twitter first came out. It's where you can simply express yourself. Back then they had characters, limited characters, to get on and express yourself. Get on and say, I'm tired. It's freedom of speech. I'm pissed. Freedom of speech. People get on up, freedom of speech. So I would think TikTok, Meta, X, LinkedIn. Y'all gonna go with but anyway, freedom of speech. The First Amendment says the government has no right to prohibit. It didn't say The government has a right to prohibit speech it does not agree with, because that's what's happening. But that's not what the First Amendment says. See the little tweaks and the little turns there? So if they don't agree with that, let me make it plain. And I think this is going to have to be another conversation for committees. What is the difference between the freedom of speech and hate speech? So I am not indicating hate speech, even though some people say freedom of speech is whatever a person is thinking. Well, I think that's a gray area, because if you attack a person's character, if you slander, if you lie, I don't think that's freedom of speech. That can be hate speech. But if you say, look at you with that vest on, that's ugly, I can't say, strike their channel, they call my vest. That's your opinion. That's freedom of speech. And I don't think we've dived into that. So what we've done is, if it's not politically correct, or if it doesn't serve an agenda, then we say that's a violation of the Freedom of Speech Act. See, and this is what Don Lemon was trying to press Elon Musk into in that interview. And if you haven't seen it, you need to see that interview, because Elon eats him alive. And I have a lot of opinions about that, and I've shared a lot on another podcast about that. My only thing is, with all due respect, I think the second richest man in the world, something like that, Elon, why did you ever think Don had been converted? Because he went in with that censored attitude. Don't you think you have a right to? So we right back at censoring speech. And that's one of the reasons, if Don did his homework, and I'm sure he did, Elon bought Twitter, because he felt Twitter was already too censored. And let me say this. We may not like everybody's freedom of speech, because this seems where we're coming to. If your speech is not politically correct, or if I don't agree with your speech, or you don't agree with my speech, then I can strike your speech. I can take your comments down. I can remove your post. Not that it's detrimental, not that it's inflammatory, not that it's slander, not that it's threatening. But you don't say, you're not following the script. And that's what I'm getting. That's just me, my opinion. It's not being said, but it's being indicated. So if we consider all of these social media platforms TikTok, because it's up for ban. And it's up for ban before the presidential election. Wow, interesting. Meta. So as I said on last week, one of the problems would be that this would make Meta one of the biggest social media platforms, with Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Meta. And I indicated last week that there's some political inclinations there. Okay, let me move on. So with this First Amendment, the government has no right to prohibit the freedom of speech. Speech that is not inflammatory, speech that is not slander, speech that is not threatening, etc., right? But just giving my opinion that may be very different from the opinion of the masses. So with that said, am I the only one who believes that the apparent silence of mainstream media on issues that either threaten large corporations' financial status or threatens a moneymaker for a large, like I just said, envy, a large corporation or their brand, then they will kind of cover it up and fail to report free information and fail to report the facts and cover up the facts, which is a type of deception. So am I seeing, to me, a conspiracy of silence? Because y'all talking too much on TikTok. You sharing too much information. And I'm talking about 170 million people. 170 million. That's used for various things. And like I said last week, part of the problem is a lot of people's livelihood has transferred to TikTok. But that doesn't matter, because if there is a conspiracy to silence, then we create a smokescreen. No, I'm not being conspiratory. I'm thinking for myself, and I'm reading the information, and I'm putting the dots together, and I'm failing to believe my lying eyes. So if there is and I'm going to read you something in a minute. If there is a conspiracy of silence, but we cloak it under the brand of national security, without a lot of details, because that's what the American public does. They take the word of the people they look up to the most, the politicians, and media personalities, and never think for themselves and never research for themselves. In a day with the internet, there's no excuse. So with all of this shadow banding and monitoring and everything, and I'm not saying, and again, let me be very clear. I am not by any means a stretch of the imagination suggesting that there should be threats posted like there have been. And a lot of tragedies have been stopped because authorities have been able to go on social media and find the threat and prohibit it. So kudos to that. But at the same time, equally, if not more, there have been more people who have been banned, channels shut down, content taken down. Simply not threatening, not inflammatory, not lies, because their opinion or the way they see things are different than what's acceptable in society. Now, what I'm about to read is taken from Newsweek, and the writer is an independent reporter, Michael Tracey, right? See, y'all, this is why I be so busy. I be having to do my homework. That's why I started getting my hair cut while I was doing the podcast, to save my time, to capitalize my time, right? Because then I got to do the other stuff for the. Then I was so busy, started eating my breakfast while I was doing the podcast, bring my syrup in, and pour it over my notes to make a point. Anyway, and yes, this is where we talk about it. So Michael Tracey writes this out, and it's a very lengthy article, but I'm gonna point out a few points, do some commentary. The title of the article is "Banning TikTok is a Power Grab for the deep state. And it is amazing how, and notice he's an independent writer. And that's why I'm saying we have to support independent media, independent press, because when you are backed by big advertisement, there are certain things you just will not, cannot. I've worked in that industry. You dare not say it. Like I said, they will have a meeting after you get off the air and say, if you say it again, you're done. And I've seen it done more times than I can tell. Because we can say nothing that threatens our advertisers, even if it's covering up truth that the public has a right to know about. So, he's an independent. And it goes, legislators have made exceedingly clear that the intent of the bill that they are currently fast-tracking, got to do it before November, through Congress, is to finally ban TikTok, or as Nancy Pelosi say, tic-tac-toe. They probably don't know what a TikTok in the United States. As Representative Elsie Steinfeld, Republican from New York, chair of the House Republican Conference, proudly puts it. TikTok must be banned. Bipartisan effort to ban TikTok, added Representative Michael McCaul, Republican from Texas, chairman of the House of Foreign Affairs Committee. TikTok must be banned. We are under a threat. We are under a national security threat. We don't know everybody that slips through the borders. We don't know if they're espionage spies or terror, but TikTok must be banned. Let us pray. The devil has entered the room. TikTok. I applaud this, Michael McCaul said. And he goes on, and they're very adamant about this. And he goes on and says, no one is trying to disguise anything. We ain't pretending we ain't trying to ban it. Clarified Representative Dan Crenshaw, Republican from Texas. We want to ban TikTok. Now, my first question would be, okay, why? TikTok is a source of information. TikTok is where people make their money. Don't you care anything about that? TikTok is how people do hair on TikTok. People cook on TikTok. People entertain on TikTok. Became very famous during the pandemic. And something that never went away. Twitch, that was on Ellen. Him and his wife did TikToks that went viral. There's information you can find on TikTok that you can't find on mainstream media. Things that have been covered up you can find on TikTok that you can't find on mainstream media or even Facebook. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. In the words of Pelosi, tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe. Now, my question as an intelligent commentator, man, brother, whatever, why? Because all I've been hearing is giving China information. Okay. Do you think this is the only way China got information? What about the information Russia has? Information everybody has on the United States. So why? Now, here's some of the smokescreen, in my opinion. Here it is. Some of the bill's proponents, like Representative Mikey Sherrill, he's a Democrat, have been less forthcoming than their colleagues. Sherrill strangely repeats the common yet obviously spectrum claim that the bill doesn't ban TikTok, which is just pure politician's sleight of hand. No, the text does not specifically provide for an immediate automatic blanket ban of TikTok, but it does provide for a fatal ultimatum. Ultimatum. We're going to give you an ultimatum to effectuate the ban of TikTok within 6 months, requiring TikTok to comply. Requiring TikTok to comply. You better do what we say. With the U.S. demands for diversity from its, or separating from its parent company, ByteDance, or face federal prohibiting. Separate from ByteDance. So while the legislation would not impose the ban right away, it does create the exact mechanisms by which TikTok is named and targeted for banning in the very near future. Among other factors that are said to have spurred this latest outburst of legislative activity was, all right, now this is where it gets real spooky. This is where you can't believe your lying eyes. Among other factors that are said to have spurred the latest outburst of legislative activity was a secret briefing last week by the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Director of National Intelligence. Now, you know we ain't gonna never find out what happened in that secret meeting, which is obviously at the core of why you want to ban TikTok. It's something you found out in this meeting that you know when you call those alphabets. We could never question you about what happened in that meeting because you will tell us it's classified information, like the documents that the presidents took home. All right, let's keep reading. It says, because it was classified hearing, I can't discuss the details. What I tell you, explained Representative Morgan Griffith, a Republican from Virginia, a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which sprung into action after receiving the secret intelligence. We were in this meeting and he said, listen, we're under threat. I'm just, kind of how they do stuff. And China, other country, is using the algorithms from TikTok, the information that's translated on TikTok, to spy on us and to plan an attack. And we got to do something about that. Yeah, let's run Congress, make a vote. Yeah, it passed, yes. But to the public. Because, and you wonder why we don't believe the media. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, I'm reading it. You can't make this up. That's what I'm reading today. Because it was a classified briefing, I can't tell you everything. Just know we're doing what's in the best interest of the American people. Just take our word for it. Mainstream media, this is the script. Stick to it. All right, let me read. So, a member of the House, Morgan, a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which sprung into action after receiving the secret intelligence presentation. If the bill supporters get what they want, millions of Americans would find their ability to access TikTok terminated by the government just in time for the November 2024 election. First Amendment that the government has no right to prohibit free speech. TikTok is a platform that provides free speech. I'm almost finished reading this. I have to give you the information. Remember, this is thought-provoking, informative, entertaining, educational podcast. The Voice. Over now. If enacted, Americans will suddenly, isn't that a song? When will he do it? Suddenly find their access to TikTok terminated by federal decree would include millions of adults. So that means no more access other than, at that point, X in Meta, to independent investigative journalists doing deep dives. Like I've seen on TikTok with the P. Diddy case that really hasn't hit mainstream media, got most of my information from my own research and from the blogs, and then followed up on the blogs. And there's one dude on TikTok who really did a deep dive. See, that's the kind of stuff we can't have because you're supposed to take our word for it. Anyway, if enacted, Americans will suddenly find access to TikTok terminated by federal decree would include millions of adults, not just minors by any stretch, for whom TikTok is a primary means, watch this, of consuming news, a primary mean of not mainstream media news, not mainstream media news, but consuming news and information, as well as expressing their own public speech. Go back to the First Amendment. Congress has no right to prohibit free speech. That's why I start off by saying it looks to me like your rights are being slowly taken away. Okay? As well as expressing their own free speech, and in some cases, even earning a livelihood. In the case of banning TikTok, advanced by the intelligence community, is so airtight and worthy of instant anonymous approval. I agree with this. This is the writer. They should disclose the supporting evidence. I don't care if it is classified. Tell us something. Why? The real reason why. They should disclose. This is what the author is saying. The supporting evidence. Otherwise, the public's only opinion is to accept subjective, questionably motivated claims of unknown intelligence community. I agree. And that's what is being banked on. In March 2023, and I'm skipping some parts because it's a very long article, so I'll just kind of outline what I feel is important, but I encourage you to go on and read it for yourself. In March 2023, no, let me read it. Before rashly ejecting up to 170 million Americans from a top social media platform, partly based on evidence, furnished in these secret star chamber proceedings, why not declassify? See, this is why I emphasize that this was an independent writer. Declassify and release that which is relevant in material so the public can, so we can evaluate it for ourselves. We don't need you to think for us. We don't need you to think for us. That was good. In March 2023, debate over an earlier initiation of the TikTok banning bill, Senator Rand Paul said this. I like Rand Paul. I mean, makes a lot of sense. I don't agree with everything, but Rand, this isn't just about the company. This to me is the voice of what a public servant should be focusing on. He said, this is not just about the company. This is about the rights of 150 million Americans. This was in 2020. So obviously 20 more million have got on since he made this statement. Allegations that TikTok functions as a funnel to Chinese government were nothing more than innuendos and conjecture, Paul charged. Likewise, a Justice Department memo supporting the TikTok bill last week vaguely alludes to the potential for the PRC, China, to influence content on TikTok, but cites no concrete example. Come on, folks. You can say, and that was the perfect smokescreen. It's classified because as soon as you threw out the alphabets, you knew that was your defense without explanation. It's classified. But here, because we have independent, and that's why I keep stressing, if the media, if we're going to believe anything, mainstream is gone. I don't even look, when the last time you looked at mainstream, other than for the weather? You can get that on your phone. There's an app, weather app on your phone. That's more accurate most of the time anyway, in my opinion. Till next. I'm looking for a particular guest. I'm trying to, because I'm gonna just give you a tease. I want to be very subjective about next week's topic. So there's this one guest. So y'all stretch your hand towards me and believe I'm gonna be able to find them and they're gonna agree to come on the show next week when I talk about the current and future state of the church. And I think I will, because I think I'm gonna need a guest for that. But if not, I'll have enough non-biased content. Because what I told you about the serpent haircut, you can go online and find it. I didn't make that up. And my thoughts on it. I don't have as much as they did. But I look. Let's go. All right. Did you share? All right. So, Paul, I agree. He says, but they're not citing any evidence of these claims that TikTok is being used for espionage reasons. So, the question is, if this passes, or even if it doesn't, how far does this go? What's next? When will it stop? When will, and one of the answers, when we stop feeding the pig. The pig oinks because we still feed it. We buy into it on both ends, politically and mainstream media. It won't stop until we stop feeding the pig. That's number one. But if this goes through and then they begin to move in other areas, and I predict that this is coming regardless. And you heard me mention it last week. And I've reached out to someone about coming on to the show to explain it, the social credit system. And I believe by 2030, it's going to be here. It's slowly getting put in place now. It's the paradigm that a lot of China uses. China rolled out a system that ranks, and what it is, if you haven't heard about it, it ranks its citizens based on their social credit. So it's like a social credit system. People can be punished for violating they use the word punish, the desires or the rules of the government. And if you speed, that takes away points. So you start off with so many points, and I'm just summarizing it. That's why I'm trying to get somebody who knows about this to come on the show to talk, to really explain, because I think this is one of the things that we really need to understand, because I believe this is where all this is leading to, inch by inch. And so people can be punished if they drive badly, by too many videos, drink, by too much. So everything is monitored. Facial recognition. I'm amazed when people say, I don't want to get that information. I don't want them to know. If you knew how much information they already had, that's what I'm saying. To say that you want to ban TikTok because there's everything. How do you get online and buy and get on a particular site? You don't even have to buy nothing. And then all you start getting is emails or coupons or advertisement for that product. You're already being monitored. George Orwell already told you in 1984. And I believe it's building up to this social credit system that I've been talking about for 2 years. And people don't believe it. Look how easy it is now through technology. And I'm not saying it's negative, but I'm just showing you the progress. To go to the airport now, they're saying, now you may not have to stop. I told a lady I traveled this summer, and you didn't have to show nothing when you walk through the detection. But there was a camera who identified you with your picture on your license, facial recognition, and it's all over the place. I told people that retina recognition, and they have that in some countries. You go to the ATM, you don't have to put a card in. You look. How far will this go? What's the purpose of this? My opinion is social engineering, so that everybody can think alike to carry out, so the many can carry out the agenda of the few. That's all the time I have today. Like this, share this, follow us. Hope you've been entertained, educated, inspired, but provoked to think. Until next Friday, I'm your host, D. Foster III. Thank you for being a part of the VoiceOver Now podcast. Make sure you tell people about it. Like it, share it, follow us. And until next week, you got a voice, and you better keep lifting it. Peace.
Thank you for being a part of The VoiceOver. Please follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay connected to our upcoming shows and guests. Instagram at The VoiceOver Radio. Twitter at DPropheticI. That's the letter D, prophetic, EYE. If this show has enriched you in any way, please share The VoiceOver among your circle. Until next time, keep allowing your voice to be heard.